Welcome to the Center for U.S. War Veterans Oral Histories at the National Guard Militia Museum of New Jersey in Seagirt, a partner of the Library of Congress's Veterans History Project. Today is March 9th, 2020. I am Carol Fowler, Director of the project. Assisting is Jack McDonald of Monmouth University, our museum intern. He's a senior at Monmouth University and about to graduate. Our honored veteran is retired Command Sergeant Major Richard A. Bammert, who served in both the United States Army and the New Jersey Army National Guard. He served in the Army from 1964 until 67, and in the New Jersey National Guard from 1972 until 2007 when he retired. And he is a veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom 3, so he was in Iraq from June of 2004 to December of 2005.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for wanting to be here today. I can call you Rich?
Yes.
Rich, your eyewitness account is considered a primary historical source and a valuable contribution to the Veterans History Project. And good morning and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Our pleasure. And tell us how you heard about this project.
You contacted me. I wasn't aware of it. I've done a few presentations, but I never had anybody sit down and interview me. You know, it was usually show and tell that I did.
It's sure to be a great interview then, if you've never been interviewed. Okay, take us back to life prior to service. Had anyone in your family served before you?
My mother's 4 brothers all served in World War II, and they all came home, and they all served in Europe. And they all had different, stories, but none of them would talk about it until later on in their years, or if I was here, they were all living in Cedar Glen Lakes Estate, which is right out the back gate of Fort Dix, in one of those retirement villages. And I would go on the weekends, drill. If we were here, I would borrow the Army's vehicle and drive over there, and I would go see my mother, my uncles. And they would finally start telling me stories about what they did in World War II, and it was very interesting. My thing that I feel bad is I never wrote it down or recorded any of it because some of them, 2 of them were in the Battle of the Bulge, both wounded, and they had some wild stories,
There's still time. You could still write it down while you remember it.
Yeah.
Well, now it's being recorded, too, if you want to tell any of the stories now.
Well, I went with my uncle Cliffy, who was in the Battle of the Bulge. He was in a non-divisional field artillery battalion, and they were the last unit into Bastogne before the Germans cut the road off. And on their way in, they got shot up, and the first truck caught on fire. And they had the towed artillery, which with the, I guess it's a 5-ton tractor with tracks, and a couple of the soldiers jumped out of their vehicles and started running to the rear of the convoy. And my uncle and his company XO jumped out of their vehicle, and my uncle pulled out his .45 pistol and started grabbing the guys. And he says, I've been fixing these trucks since D-Day. And he says, we're not leaving them for the Germans. Get back in there and drive. And that's what they did, and that's how they got into Bastogne. And they were the last artillery unit to get in. And if it wasn't for that, they wouldn't have had the heavy artillery pieces.
What an incredible story.
Yeah. Wow. He got, I try to remember what year, around 1995 or maybe 92, he got a letter from Damava, trying to think who was the commanding general at the time. They invited him to an awards ceremony at Damava, and he went with his wife, and he was awarded the Silver Star for his actions that day in Bastogne. And he told the story he told us, 21 people were put in for medals that day. None of the enlisted guys got a medal. All the medals went to the battalion staff that wasn't even there.
It's a common story that we hear.
Yeah. So he figured he'd, gone and forgotten. And somehow somebody in St. Louis saw the recommendation in this file. I guess when they were going through microfilm and everything, going from the paper to microfilm, they saw the recommendation, and they contacted New Jersey.
It's
and
a beautiful story.
He got his medal. And what I did is he gave me a copy of his DD-214 from World War II, and I went and I made a shadow box for him with all the ribbons.
So now he has everything that he was eligible for and
Right.
put in for.
Yeah, but unfortunately, while I was in Iraq, he passed away, and him and my other uncle are both buried in Arneytown.
You can still get medals posthumously
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Oh, it's incredible. It's really almost miraculous, isn't it?
Oh,
The St. Louis connection.
Yeah, yeah. It was amazing. He was floored. Because he figured he was going to get a handshake or something, and then they turn around and give him the Silver Star. I was like, wow, holy crow. Yeah.
It's amazing. All right, so how did you come to be in the Army? You went in the 64, so was that during the draft?
Yeah, the draft was on. The Army recruiters used to come to all the high schools, and they had a thing called guaranteed schooling. And, you went, you took the aptitude test, and they saw what you were, good at. They said I would make a good electronics guy. So I signed up for field radio repair school, which was 9 months long. And after basic training, which I took at Fort Dix, I went to Fort Gordon, Georgia, and got all my training there.
Does that mean that you enlisted?
Oh yeah, I enlisted with the guaranteed schooling. I graduated in '64 and I enlisted in September 23rd, 1964.
What kind of adjustment was it for you to go from civilian to military life?
Didn't bother me at all. I liked it. I was an avid camper. We used to go hunt with my brother. I loved the outdoors, so I enjoyed it. And I had belonged to a naval cadet organization growing up, and we had a drill team.
Sea Cadet?
Yeah, Sea Cadets, and we were in Edgewater, and I was on the drill team, and we would do parades.
Okay.
The big adjustment was when we finished our class, our schooling. There was 11 of us. They gave us our orders. The class in front of us went to Germany. The class in front of them went to Germany. Our class went to Korea. And we went by. They flew us out to California. And back then, you traveled in your Class A uniform. We got to California, they marched us into a warehouse. Everybody had to change, put their fatigues on, put us on the bus, and took us down to the pier. And the ship was already, making steam. They were waiting for the last 90 guys that we came on that plane to get on the boat. And when we were getting on the boat, they would, with chalk, they would mark a number on your helmet, and so you went up the ramp, and we got up, and then you dropped your duffel bags right into the hole, and then while we're doing that, the ship's pulling out. That's how fast they wanted it. I guess they had to make the tide or whatever it was, but it was like, and then they put us, because we were late, they put us in the bow compartment, which fit about 95 guys. And it was actually, sloped. And it was like, oh, man. So you really felt the waves, Took from the day we left Oakland, California, to the day we landed at Incheon, Korea, was 31 days.
Wow.
I got some pictures of the ship, which only made, I think, one or two more trips after that. And then they started flying everybody to Korea. And I flew home at the end of my tour. It was a 13-month tour in Korea.
I wanted to go back to Fort Gordon. Was there any adjustment just going to the south in the 64?
Well, I was surprised that we went to Augusta, which is the biggest city right outside Fort Gordon, and they had all the signs, whites only. Mm-hmm. It was very segregated, and the black soldiers, we couldn't travel with them. We had to travel separately.
Even though the Army was integrated?
Yes. Yeah.
It wasn't integrated in the South?
No. Mm-mm. No.
That was before civil rights, right? Before the civil rights movement.
I'm talking 65. The civil rights was still going on. The big marches were in 67,
Later,
68. Yeah. Including the Detroit fires and the Newark riots.
Were,
yeah.
There was a big one in 66.
Yes.
In California?
When the Newark riots happened in New Jersey, I was still in the Army. I was stationed at Fort Monmouth. And they issued out flak vests, gas masks, weapons, and they had the 2.5-ton trucks lined up in the square, waiting they wouldn't send in federal troops unless the president declared a federal emergency, because the National Guard and the New Jersey State Police were already there. So we waited for 2 days, and then they said, stand down. So we said, okay. But it was pretty tense.
Did you have riot training?
They didn't give us any riot training, no. In the Guard, later on, years later, we did a lot of riot training.
What did you do at Fort Gordon?
Went to class.
Advanced infantry? Or?
No. It was field radio repair. It was down. Let's see. Did I? 31 Echo 10.
How did you like that job? Were you good at it?
I liked it. I don't know if I was good at it. The guys that had been in a long time, that had been in the Army a while, they were pros. They could tell you what was wrong with the radio set. And basically we were fixing the radios that were mounted in Jeeps. When we went to school, we were trained on the VRC family of radios, which was the newest thing. Motorola made them. They were all transistorized, state-of-the-art type radios for getting ready for Vietnam. When we got to Korea, they didn't have those radios. They had the old World War II radios that were all tube. So it was a surprise. All that training for nothing. And we became tube jockeys. That's all you're doing was pulling tubes, replacing tubes, trying to find out, troubleshooting the radios.
So when you got to Incheon, what were your impressions of Korea?
We were 2 days out from Korea when the captain got on the speaker and said, if you look over the side of the ship, you'll see that the blue water has turned brown. That means we're only 2 days out from Korea.
That was their sewer system.
Yeah, that was like the whole country. At that point in '65, the only paved roads were in Seoul. Once you left Seoul to go north, I was in the 51st Signal Battalion, which was right outside Uijeonbu, which is famous from the MASH movie.
Can you spell that?
Uijeonbu? No. We'd have to look it up, I was in two different units there. I was in the headquarters at 51st Signal, and then they sent me TDY to the 123rd Forward Signal Support Company in Kumari, which was another small village on the other side of Uijeonbu.
Kumari?
Kumari, yes.
Kumari.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. That was a small base. There were only 3 companies on there.
What was a typical day like for you there?
You got up, formation in the morning, chow, went to the mess hall. They had all American and Korean cooks and Korean KPs. So nobody pulled KP, which was nice. Because in Fort Gordon, Georgia, we were all pulling KP, and B is right after A in the alphabet, so matter. Wherever you went, I was the first guy always picked. You're laying in bed at 4 o'clock in the morning and somebody comes with a flashlight, wakes you up and says, get up, you got KP. What? What are you talking about? Come with me, hurry up, you got 5 minutes, get dressed. Yeah, that's... Never saw a KP roster or anything like that. It was always like, first couple of guys were always picked. But Korea was a strange situation. In our 51st Signal Battalion, they had an excess of radio repair guys. So what they did is they sent us TDY to the signal company to help them because they were backlogged with a lot of deadline equipment. And then when we went back to battalion, because they still didn't need us, they farmed us out to the infantry company, 1st to the 31st Infantry. They were called the Polar Bears, and they put us on the DMZ, pulling patrol duty. Because like the Marine Corps, the Army used to say, everybody's an infantryman. Grab your rifle and go. I brought a lot of pictures. You can see the pictures of Korea.
Nice.
And over there, I used to take slides. So a couple of years ago, I converted all the slide pictures to CD. Yeah, and
awesome.
Yeah.
What was morale like for you in Korea?
High and low. At one point, we had a first sergeant who was from the Bay of Pigs, one of the original guys that invaded Cuba, that somehow escaped, and he was in the Army. He was Cuban, and he spoke very little English, and you couldn't understand a word he said. He always had to have an interpreter when he had formation. So it was like you got to be kidding me. But sometimes everybody was happy. If there was no work, you got passed on the weekend. You can go to the village. Sometimes even during the week, you could go to the village.
What about packages from home, letters?
Oh, everything came by boat. They didn't have airmail particularly at that point. My girlfriend sent me a cake for Halloween, and whatever anybody got, they shared.
Oh, okay.
Everybody would, share. And but I still got some of the letters that my girlfriend sent me, who later became my wife. So and she would send me all kinds of good stuff. And when we were in Iraq, she would send me stuff because there was real shortage of personal care stuff when we were there. Yeah,
that's interesting. So, about how many letters would you say that you have from them?
I probably got about 20 letters.
That's incredible. That could be a part of your collection for the Library of Congress. All right. Let's see. What was the progress of the stalemate, shall we say, at the time that you were there?
How do you want to say this? You were not allowed to listen to the North Korean radio station. If they caught you listening to the North Korean radio station or to Hanoi radio station, you would get an Article 15. So what we used to do is we used to go up to the commo van and then lock the door and turn on the long-range radios. We had the T195 and R392 heavy-duty receivers, and we could get the signal bounced off the clouds, so you could hear people in the Philippines. You could hear North Korean radio, and we used to listen to Hanoi Jane all the time. And the North Korean radio used to say, "We're coming over tomorrow. We're going to get you. We're coming to get you tomorrow." I mean, every day they would say that, because they were trying to start a second front to decrease America's involvement in Vietnam. They wanted to siphon off as much strength as they could. Because when I was in Korea, there was over 53,000 troops there. You had 2 full divisions, plus all the support command units. So you had the 2nd Infantry and the 7th Infantry divisions.
You weren't near the
The DMC?
Yeah.
Yes.
You were?
Yeah. Yeah, that's where some of the pictures were taken. You know, it was a very dangerous area. Of course, there's still landmines in the ground, and when it would get cold, the landmines explode because the pressure, they contract, and some of them are so old that they've been stepped on many times, pressured, so you never know, what's safe. They had paths marked out with engineer tape that were cleared, and you stayed on that path, because if you went off, you always ran the risk of stepping on something and getting blown up and killed.
Was there any sniping?
Not by us. There were incidents where when I was in the Signal Battalion, Charlie Company sent out a crew to repair telephone lines. See, one of the things the Koreans would do is they would cut the telephone lines down, and they would take it away because of the copper inside, and they would melt, they burn the rubber off and melt the copper and sell it. So one of the signal crews, a 3-man team, went out to repair the break in the line, and they by nighttime they hadn't come back, so they sent a platoon out to look for them, and they found them. They were all dead. Oh, wow. And the one guy was still up on the pole with his in his harness. When you're a pole climber, you got the spikes and the belt. And you go up the pole like that. And he was still up there. And the guy in the truck had his throat slit. He was sitting behind the steering wheel.
That's awful.
Yeah. So you had to be careful. Even when we went to the field, always 2 men to a foxhole. One guy always alert, especially at night.
Even though it was a stalemate, it's almost like it still was a war.
Yeah. There was still, and there was the constant threat of North Korean infiltrators coming across the DMZ, and when they came across, they all spoke very good English. They all carried anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000 in American greenbacks. In case they were captured. That money was supposed to be used to bribe the soldier or whoever captured him to let him go.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I never knew that they spoke clear English like the Germans did.
Yeah.
Wow. Did you know anybody who was with you over there?
My best friend, who became my best man in my wedding, Dominic Aletto, lives in Freehold, I think it is now. Him and I enlisted in the Army together the same day. We're Aletto A, Bammert B. We were three guys apart, and usually. We did basic training together. We went to Fort Gordon, Georgia together. We went on the ship to Korea together, and we were in the same company in Korea. And we got our orders for the States on the same day to come home. And then we went to the same place, Fort Monmouth, and we were in a student company, and they made us instructors at the signal school, not like assistant instructors. We would clean the blackboards for the professors, make sure that the students all had their writing material and stuff. And then,
That school lasted until the BRAC closure, right? The signal school?
Yeah, Monmouth.
So
Well,
Rumsfeld.
what they were doing is at Fort Monmouth, they had it open, but the signal school was gone. It went down to Fort Gordon, Georgia, but they still had Monmouth open, and they were using it as West Point Prep Academy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's right. Do you have any more stories about Korea?
Let's see. Think. I don't think so.
Okay. Did we talk about ground surveillance?
Oh,
Radar?
I went to a 2-week course when I was in Korea because I didn't like walking the DMZ. So I said, what can we do? What can I do to get out of this? And the guy said, well, if you want to go to Camp Casey, which is 7th Infantry Division, you can take a 2-week course on the ground surveillance radar. And I says, sign me up. So I went. I took a 2-week course to operate the radar, and then they had the radars in the bunkers on the DMZ. I don't know if I have the pictures of it, but you're always on a high point shooting down into the valley, open area. And one time I was operating the radar set at night, and we picked up a blip on the radar. And with the headphones, you could actually hear the swooshing, almost like the grass is moving from whoever's walking. And I got on the field phone and I called for illumination round. They fired an illumination round up, and there was a guy coming across. He had already cut his way through the first barbed wire fence and was prancing across. And then a couple of the other bunkers saw him, and then they started shooting at him. And then somebody opened up with a machine gun, and then some people to the left opened up with small arms fire. The guy turns around and goes back the other way, and then when the flare burned out, nobody could see, but people were still shooting. But nobody hit him, because in the morning there was no body out there. So.
Okay. Scout platoon tank commander, that's later.
Yeah.
All right, so what was your homecoming like from Korea?
We flew to Fort Lewis, Washington. They processed us out, gave us plane tickets, and Class A uniform. And I flew down to Oakland, California, where my brother lived. He worked at the Alameda Air Station as a airplane mechanic. So he picks me up at the airport. And the first thing he says is, you have civilian clothes with you? I go, yeah. He says, good. And threw me in the men's room and says, change. You can't go outside like that. And all the protesters were outside.
Wow.
Protesting the Vietnam War.
Were you surprised?
Yeah. I was very surprised. I figured that people would be supporting the soldiers, but wrong.
Oh.
Yeah. I was glad to get back, though. 13 months is a long time.
It is.
Yeah.
And you're so young.
Yeah.
A teenager, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, I went in, I was 18, and when I got out, I was 21.
Mm-hmm. And then you came back home. What was that like? Came back to...
Fort Monmouth. When I came back from Korea.
Right.
Yeah, I spent my last 9 months at Fort Monmouth. And then Fort Monmouth, because we were in this headquarters company, the first thing they did is they made us Spec 5s, because I was a sergeant E5, and they put us on KP. I says, E5's on KP? The first sergeant says, no, sorry, but all lower ranking people have to pull KP because they didn't have enough lower rank. They had master sergeants and E7 platoon sergeants. So us little lonely old E5s all got KP. So,
For how long?
Oh, you would pull KP. We were pulling KP once every 2 weeks, and then they had a separate roster for the weekends. So you got tagged with that too. I saw these guys in the chow hall with these tailored green uniform, their Class A uniform tailored, and I says, who are those guys? And they said, oh, that's the General's Honor Guard / firing squad. they have their own bay over in the other barracks. I said, well, how do you get on it? So I went over, I talked to one of the guys, and said, how do you get on? He said, oh, you got to go interview with a colonel, and if you pass the interview, they put you on probation for a month, and you get to do the honor guard ceremonies and primarily military funerals, because Fort Monmouth, Vietnam was just starting to crank up. We're talking the end of '66, beginning of '67, and there were a lot of bodies coming back. So I did.
To
I got
Fort
on.
Monmouth?
Yeah, and my buddy Dominic got on with me. We both got on the general's honor guard. And we got off KP.
Good for you.
Yeah.
And you said that was the last 9 months, so now you're discharged from the Army?
Yes, yeah. I got out September 22nd, 1967. I wanted to stay in, but my future wife said, you stay in, I'm gone. So I got out, and I went to work for Bendix Aviation in Teterboro. Got a very nice job from my electrical experience in the Army. Mm-hmm. And that part was right. But it came in handy.
Did you have veterans preference?
Yes. Yeah, they hired, the day I got hired, there was about 35 of us, and we all worked different shifts. I worked the night shift. I worked from 3 to 12. But I loved it, and the money was great. And, I was going to get married. Everything was set in motion. And just about 1 year and a day after I got hired, we showed up one day, and the big boss is standing by my boss, and he's pointing at different people, and then the security guard would come over and take your badge away, your security badge, and then he was pointing, telling them to go to the main building, go to the cafeteria. We went there, and I looked around. It was all the guys that was hired together with us. We all got laid off because what Bendix was doing is, in order to keep the government contracts, they had to hire so many veterans every year. So they would hire X amount of veterans, keep them for 1 year, lay them off, and then hire another batch. And the union, and I was in the union, and the union didn't do anything for us. They said, sorry, can't help you. So I got laid off 2 weeks before I was getting married.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Did you use your GI Bill from the Army?
Yes and no. I used it in the Guard to go to college the nights.
Did the Army try to get you to re-up?
Yes. They made us go watch these films where when you come home, your girlfriend is in the arms of some other guy, your dog bites you. Yeah, your dog bites you. Yeah. And they were waving big bucks. For me to re-enlist, it was like they were going to give me like $12,000, which was a lot of money back then. Mm-hmm. But the problem was, as soon as you re-enlisted, you knew you were going to Vietnam. So that's why my future wife said no.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
5 years.
Yeah, I didn't join the Guard until '72 because I wanted to make sure that I had my official military obligation completed.
Oh, the reserves?
You got 3 years active, and then you were in the inactive for 3 years. And at the time, there were units being called up. So I waited until I got officially discharged. And then a good friend of mine kept bugging me, come on, join the Guard. We go drive tanks on the weekend. You'll love it. So I did. I joined the Troop by 3rd of the 104th Armored Cavalry in January 1972.
And what was happening then? The Vietnam was still going on?
Vietnam was still going on, but it was kind of like the tail end of Vietnam. It was starting to,
Watergate was going on.
Yeah. And all the Guard was primarily filled with all draft dodgers, basically. The guard
That
had
should be a quote.
the guard had the reputation of weekend warriors, and they were all guys that beat the draft by joining the guard. And in 1975 and 76, all of these draft dodgers, 6-year enlistments were coming up, and they were all getting out, and they would burn their uniforms right in the armory parking lot, and they would dump out all their stuff in the parking lot and set it fire. And they would say, "That's it, I'm done, we're out of here." It was known as the duffel bag drag. You would watch these guys get out, because at final formation, the first sergeant would say, "Okay, the following soldiers are ETSing today. Last chance if you want to stay in." They'd all boo and hiss and, have catcalls. And then they would drag their duffel bags out into the armory parking lot and change into civilian clothes and set fire to their uniforms. He says, "No, we want no more part of this." It was a big thing, and it hurt the guard because the unit strength went from 100% down to, like, some cases below 50%, because so many people got out and nobody was joining.
It sounds like you're describing that morale must have been really low, because they didn't take pride in
right.
serving.
No.
They were just killing time.
They were just killing time. They didn't want to be there. To be truthful, when my first 2 summer camps at Fort Drum, I was astounded at the fact that they had 2 full 2.5-ton trucks was full of beer, cases and cases of beer. Mm-hmm. And at night, the training ended at 5 o'clock. Everybody would have, eat dinner back then the cooks were in each company's bivouac site, and then they had a truck that they cooked in, and everybody would have parties. The beer would come out, and it would be iced down, and party. And that's what kept those guys going. Mm-hmm. I couldn't believe it. I was astounded because I never saw anything like that in Korea. It was like, holy crow, beer in the field. It was like, wow.
So the guard was 1 weekend a month and
Yeah.
2 weeks in the summer.
Right.
Where would you go during the
my
weekends?
first couple weeks, couple summer camps, everybody went to drum, unless you were here at the military academy, where you did your AT here, and then when it came time to do the field training, you'd go to Fort Dix. My first year in the Guard, like I previously stated, the battalion commander taught landmine warfare here at the military academy. So he was looking for assistant instructors, and I volunteered. So I came down and did an extra 3 weeks. And we primarily we did practice here, and then we took the show on the road to Fort Dix, and we set up practice minefields that the candidates had to practice going through.
What was happening in foreign policy at the time that you were in the Guard? Well, you were in the Guard for
34 years.
Oh.
Everything.
Everything, right?
But one of the most interesting times was when Ronald Reagan became president, because at that point the Guard had been totally unfunded. We were using leftover equipment from Korea, from the Korean War. All the old trucks were worn out. You couldn't get repair parts. And Ronald Reagan actually built the military back up. Mm-hmm. And in a short time of maybe 3 years, you can see the difference in the Guard. We finally started to get real equipment, and then they finally had money for extra training, where guys could go away to school and get trained on the equipment that we were getting. Whereas prior to that, there was no equipment coming in, and we were told that's why the salvage yard at Fort Dix was so full of trucks, because they drive them until they blew up. Mm-hmm.
What was your job in the Guard? Scout platoon tank commander?
I started off as the ground surveillance radar sergeant, which was a E6 lot. and then I was able to move up and take over the scout platoon, which was I think it was 19 Delta back then, was the MOS. That was an E7 slot. So I was able to I went from E5 to E6, and then I got promoted to E7, and then the Armored Cav went away because it was the gasoline crisis of 76, when there was no fuel in the gas lines. So they decided that they didn't need another squadron of Armored Cav tanks and vehicles, so they reorganized the 3rd of the 104th Armored Cav into 3rd Battalion of the 113th Infantry.
Where did you have that training? Fort Knox?
For the Cav or infantry?
For tank.
Tank, yes.
Let's try to cover all of the locations they had you go to.
Well, Fort Knox was there. I did a what they call the abbreviated scout class. It was 2 weeks long. It was like an extra AT, but at the end of the 2 weeks, you were able to be awarded the MOS. So once you were awarded the MOS, then you could be promoted as long as you had enough time and grade.
And you were unit first sergeant?
Yes. Yeah, when we were still Armored Cav, the unit first sergeant got promoted, or I should say transferred. He took a transfer to Riverdale, and at the formation, the company commander asked if anybody wanted to be first sergeant. So nobody wanted to be first sergeant. So I raised my hand. He says, "Get out of here, and, take over." And back then, that's how it was done. There was no promotion boards or slots. If you wanted to do it, it was the good old boy days, where depending on who you knew, that's how you got promoted. So I became the unit first sergeant. I was an E6, and that year we went to Fort Drum, and I was an E6, and you had the regular Army evaluators, which were usually captains, majors, lieutenant colonels, and sometimes full-bird colonels. We had an Army major. He would not talk to me because I was only an E6 and I wasn't an E8 first sergeant. So he would constantly go after my commander, and my commander would sig me on him. So, and one time, they would come in, the Army evaluators would come in, and they'd go all through the bivouac site, trying to catch you doing something that they could write you up for. And back then, when you were in the field, you set up what they called a field latrine with latrine screens, and we had the portable wooden boxes with the toilet seats on, and then we'd dig a big hole, set up the latrine, and then you had the lime dispenser, so you would throw the lime in with a shovel after you did your business. Well, he went in there and he lifted up one of the toilet seats, and there was a beer can in the excrement in the bottom of the pit, and he called me over and he says, "You see this? You see this?" I says, "Sir, it must be infiltrators." I says, "None of my soldiers would do that." He was mad. After that, he didn't talk to me at all.
Mm-hmm. And senior NCO?
When I was in the engineer battalion, what I did is I was offered a full-time position in the engineer battalion because one of the full-timers had retired, and at the time I was working for a trucking company full-time, so I took it, and the guy that retired was also the first sergeant, so I was able to keep my E8 rank, stay as a first sergeant, and then run the engineer company. And then what I did is on the weekends, when we weren't drilling, I would sign up for different engineer courses at Fort Belvoir, Virginia. And I would go to these 3-day weekend courses. And then I also took the senior engineer correspondence course, which was like, 1,000 hours forever. And, with all of that schooling, then I was able to get, move up the ladder.
And also, let's keep in mind anything that was happening in the Cold War throughout these decades.
Well,
Bosnia, Somalia,
Grenada. They
Panama.
They took one group, went to later on in the.
Well, Bosnia was past the Cold War.
Yeah, was at the end, and that was only selected people. For Desert Storm back in '91, they reached out and they took a lot of volunteers from the Jersey Guard. Jersey put together a unit that went over.
Your wife didn't want you to volunteer.
No, because I was full time then. If you went, you lost your job.
Oh, they didn't have the security back then?
No, what they wanted to do is they didn't want any of the full-timers leaving. And so if you left, you would have no job when you came back. So nobody went. None of the full-timers went.
So you have really seen some changes over the years.
Oh, yes, yeah.
That sounds horrendous, doesn't it? Looking back now.
Oh, yeah. It's like some of the stuff, you'd be written up,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or the IG would come in and, some people would be fired.
So the unit you were in, was it mobilized for Desert Storm? Even
No,
though you weren't there?
I was in the engineer battalion. We were put on standby. And what we did is we loaded up, I want to say 4 or 5 Connexes. And then we took them down to Montvi, in Bayonne, the military ocean terminal, when it was still Montvi. And they put the stuff on the ship and, sent it in advance of us to Kuwait. But Desert Storm ended so fast that the Jersey Guard never got called. So we didn't go. But we never saw our equipment again either. Yeah, we had a lot of stuff, all the Pioneer sets and all kinds of stuff. All the tools, saws, chainsaws, axes.
The Kuwaitis got it all?
Well, it went to Kuwait,
Right.
but somebody in the Army got it, I don't know if Jersey ever got reimbursed for it, but it never came back.
Okay, and you were also a senior combat engineer, NCO?
Yes, I was the battalion operations sergeant. So whenever it was an engineering project, I would go out with the surveying team and we would see whether we could do it. We did a lot of DOMACs, domestic action projects in various communities. We built ball fields. A lot of people don't realize the 104 engineers built Arneytown Cemetery. And, because we were the only ones, we went in there with our bulldozers and we cleared the land. We followed the way they had it diagrammed for the roads. And a lot of the officers in the engineer battalion, guys like Major Mark Clemenson, Nicky Vitillo, Frank Geraci, they were all civilian engineers, and so these guys had the skill set to do all of this stuff. And it was
Interesting.
Yeah, so what they did is they would split the battalion up, and every weekend a different company would go down and do work on the Arneytown Cemetery, which is now, General Doyle Cemetery.
Right.
Yeah.
And you would go too?
Yes.
Interesting. Quartermaster NCO?
Yep. Well, when I went to the main support battalion after I left the engineer
Oh, we
battalion.
can hold off on that. That's Iraq, right?
No. I had to take the quartermaster course to.
Where was that?
The final phase was part of the Sergeant Major Academy, and that was in Fort Bliss, Texas. My ring says 92 Zulu.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was the year you were there.
No, 92 Zulu is the MOS for Quartermaster Sergeant Major, which was the slot that I filled in the main support battalion. I graduated the Sergeant Major Academy in August of 2002.
What are your memories of 9/11?
bad. We were doing PT when I guess the first plane hit the tower, and we had just come back to the armory with the administrative officer, and we were going to go hit the showers, and then the unit armorer told us to go put the TV on in the officers' club. So we unlocked the officers' club. We didn't put the TV on, and we saw the plane. And while we were watching, the second plane hit.
Which armory?
Teaneck Armory.
Oh, that's right.
And then in the interim, the Italian, I guess, training officer had left to go to a meeting at Fort Dix. So
They were on lockdown.
yeah, we were trying to call him. We finally got through to him. He was on the turnpike. He turned around and came back. And we went up on the roof of the armory with binoculars, and you could see the fire, from the from the towers.
So when I researched you, Teaneck Armory did come up. There was a
Yep.
piece on you. A lot of our journal articles on
Yes,
the guard
yeah,
life.
yeah.
So I'll just take a picture of this. The Teaneck Armory.
Nine 9/11 changed everything for the Guard. After 9/11, they had what they called the bridge and tunnel missions, and that was the matter of for the soldiers in North Jersey. We were assigned to guard the George Washington Bridge, the Lincoln Tunnel, the Holland Tunnel, Newark Airport, and the railroad terminal in Newark. And these rotations usually lasted them anywhere from 3 weeks to 5 weeks.
In full combat gear, right?
Full combat gear with ammunition. We had a lot of accidental discharges at the armory. Well, we had a clearing barrel. You stuck the weapon in the clearing barrel, after it was supposedly unloaded, and every once in a while you would hear bang, where somebody left a round in the chamber. But I was walking around. I had my 9mm. We're walking around in full combat gear with a round in the chamber and the safety on.
Do you have any stories from that time? How long did that go on for?
We did 3 iterations of the bridge and tunnel missions, but it went on for probably a good year and a half. Went on. What they had to do is they had to wait till they could train up enough security people to take our place. But the bridge and tunnel missions were brutal. They were 12-hour shifts.
Wow.
And you were driving in all kinds of weather. Some of the towns like Edgewater would provide police escort right all the way to the Lincoln Tunnel, which was nice. There were incidents where people cut us off, and we had to remind them that we were armed.
What?
Well,
How?
by sticking the weapon out the window. It's like, hey, get away, people.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Jersey drivers?
Jersey drivers. Yeah. Most of the morons were at the GW Bridge because everybody was in a hurry to get to work.
Wow. Okay, I'm reading a note that you wrote me. All right, we'll talk about the Teaneck Armory again after we talk about Iraq. So we're up to the 50th Main Support Battalion in your story.
Yeah.
And let's talk about, we said Quartermaster NCO. You graduated in 02. Sergeant Major Academy.
Yeah, that's my 92 Zulu.
Oh, we said
Yeah.
that, okay. I also read Enlisted Association of the National Guard of New Jersey corresponding secretary.
Yes,
For the
yeah,
50th Support Battalion.
From early on in my career in the Guard, I got involved with the Enlisted Association, and I eventually became one of the officers, and we enjoyed it because back then they would have conventions, which was a big morale booster, and we would try and get as many tables as we could for the battalion. But that was all extra stuff that you had to do. But it was a good retention tool. And that was one of the reasons why the main support battalion and the 104 engineers had such high strength. Before the engineer battalion went away, we were at 100% strength. And out of that, our MOSQ qualification was 91%, which was the highest in the state. So, and that's going some. But that's because we had a lot of social stuff.
Right.
Besides, we had a battalion NCO association, and we ran dinner dances and trips, and it was all for retention, to keep the soldiers in. And it worked.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, it was very good.
So how did you come to be a veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom?
In February of 2004, we were notified by Trenton, Fort Dix, that we were going to be mobilized come 1 June. That we were going with the 42nd Infantry Division, which we were a part of, and we would get mobilized at Fort Dix, train at Fort Dix, and then we would fly to Iraq. Actually, to Kuwait first, and in Kuwait, you married up with all your equipment, which went by boat, and then we had to do mandatory training in Kuwait. Once again, firearms, hand grenade training, NBC training, because there was still a threat of enemy using NBC or nerve gas, against the Americans. So, but we were in Kuwait for 14 days, and then we left there. How would you say the enough people to drive all the vehicles that we had. We left Kuwait and we did what they called a ground assault convoy from Kuwait all the way to Crete, where division headquarters was, and we were at Fob Spiker, and we were another 18 miles north of that. But we did that. The ground assault convoy was 590 miles, and we did it in 3 days. The first day we drove in the daylight, but after that we drove at night so that the Taliban or Al Qaeda wouldn't see us as much and try and shoot us up as much. So they tried to drive at night.
How did that go?
It was tough. It was like, boy, and a lot of people don't realize we're doing this in January, and we're in open vehicles with hillbilly armor on the side, and it's cold. It's in the 30s, and you're moving. So if I wasn't driving, I'm sitting in the passenger seat in my sleeping bag. And the guy driving, he's got gloves, and we had the Bacala, face masks, because it was so cold, the wind coming in the vehicle. I was in a Humvee with no doors. We had hillbilly armor, so.
Was that after those female prisoners were taken? Prisoners including females.
Yes, yeah.
And then they had to armor the Humvees after that.
Right, yeah.
So hillbilly is just like slapping armor onto.
Right, yeah. I have
Humvee.
pictures in the photo album.
Oh, okay.
We actually did not get our armored Humvees for almost 4 months while we were there. And when we were in Camp Liberty in Kuwait, Secretary Donald Rumsfeld, Secretary of Defense, was in Kuwait, and at a big news conference said that no one would go outside the wire unless they had properly armored vehicles, and none of us had. And we're talking about the whole, 42nd Infantry Division that was going forward, doing this ground assault convoy. We had no up-armored vehicles, only the hillbilly armor that we made.
So what did that do for morale to hear your...
Knocked it down.
Right.
Yeah. Here's this politician saying that, lying through his teeth.
Right.
And here's this National Guard
What else are they lying
division.
about?
Yeah.
Right.
So.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a big. But we accepted it. Did what you had to do. Go north. Division commander drove by my vehicle, came by and said hello to everybody, and said, "I'll meet you at Tikrit," and off we went. And they were in the same kind of vehicles as us. So there was no distinction whether you were a 2-star general or, E9 or E4. You were driving in a vehicle with hillbilly armor. Mm-hmm. The rest of the units flew in about a week later. The rest of the battalion, our battalion, and then the other units, and then division headquarters, they all flew the rest of them in. When we first got to our base at Fob Spiker, the 1st Infantry Division was still there. And we did what they called right seat, left seat ride, where for 2 weeks I ran around with my counterpart, the Sergeant Major from the 701st Main Support Battalion. Battalion commander went with his battalion commander. And then the first week, you rode in the right seat, and then the second week you did the driving. So you were in charge, giving the orders, so that you could transition into the role of running the operation. So that was pretty tough too, pretty hectic. Not a lot of sleep.
And did you have desert training before you went?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so because you didn't mention Texas.
No,
You mentioned
no.
Fort Dix.
No. Well, we mobilized at Fort Dix. The USAR ran most of the training. Their instructors were terrible. They stunk. Yeah. They had a unit out of Virginia that was terrible. It got to the point when we were doing crew served weapons training, the battalion commander grabbed me by the sleeve and said, "You get out to that 50 cal machine gun range and you stay there until all the machine gun crews get qualified," because every day they were failing to qualify. So I got out there and I took over running the class. In one of my many schools, I took the 2-week course at Fort Dix at the High Tech Center. I became qualified with the 50 cal, qualified with the M60 machine gun. And I was the Mr. Go-To guy. I had my own toolbox of 50 cal repair parts, but I did it. I learned how to use the 50 cal when I was in Korea, in one of the bunkers. I had a sergeant teach me, and I loved it. It was my favorite weapon.
Oh, okay.
The Mondoose. And when we were in Iraq, I carried headspace and timing gauge in my first aid pouch. And before we would pull out on a convoy, I'd go down the line to all the gunners in the turrets and ask them if they had spaced and checked their 50 cal. And every once in a while, I'd get up and check, make sure that they weren't lying to me. Mm-hmm. And then, when they saw me coming, guys would start ripping out the gauges, checking the barrels. And so it worked. And it probably saved a few lives because the guns would work. A lot of guys would just screw the barrel in and say, "I'm good to go." You can't. You got to do the headspace and timing so that the weapon's going to work properly.
Mm-hmm. So what other countries were with you? Any other countries?
In the lower part, when we were doing the ground assault convoy, we were driving in the daylight. We drove through the British sector of Iraq, and they had both British and New Zealand troops there, and you could tell the difference by the different colored uniforms and by their patches. And they would all yell at us, "Hey, Yank! Hey, Yank! What you go? Where you going? Where you going? I'm going north. Good luck, Yank!" So that was, and they all had that British accent, you know. It was funny. In Camp Doha in Kuwait, I was there for a quick course. They had a big mess hall, and that was close to where the British were. So there was always a lot of British NCOs and officers in the chow hall, and we actually traded. They gave me some of their field rations, and we gave them our MREs. They liked the MREs. We liked the British stuff better.
Really?
Yeah, it was really good. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Did you have any incidents happen in Iraq?
We had in the back of our yearbook. I was on a convoy, June 2005. It was the second vehicle in the convoy. I was the fifth, and a Iraqi taxi cab pulled up alongside the Humvee, and the guy did the Allah Akbar, which is, they raised their hand. They have the detonator, the loop going to the detonator. The car was full of artillery shells, and the car blew up, and it killed the gunner in the Humvee. Van Ryzen, who was driving in the passenger seat, he was injured. He wound up losing an eye. The only guy that didn't get hurt was the driver. So he was KIA. Manny was KIA on the spot. It blew his head off. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, and I picked his helmet up, and his head was still in it.
What? Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a tough day.
Oh.
Yeah. Then we put him in a body bag, and we put him in the back of my Hummer. And the maintenance crew towed. They put Manny's Hummer on one of the lowboys and brought it back to Spiker. And I got a picture of it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Then that night we did the mortuary affairs, which we had. The mortuary affairs people had to ID him. They fingerprinted him, make sure it was really Manny. Then we did what they call a hero flight, where once the mortuary people were done with the body, we all went to the airport. We put it on. We had a whole procession, where we carried the body on and put it on the C-130, flew it to Germany.
Did someone go with him?
Yes. Yeah.
His battle buddy?
No, his battle buddies were all hurt. So it was somebody from the DISCOM went. Mm-hmm. But what they did is when they actually had the burial in New York, because they were part of the company known as the Harlem Hellfighters. Manny was one of 39 guys that were from that Harlem Hellfighters truck company. And they were called mobilized, just like we were, and they used them as fillers for different companies. And he was in the used in the truck company. One of the things that I have to explain, when the bridge and tunnel missions was going on, they were taking people from the different units throughout the state, and they organized this task force to take over guarding the different locations. All right. So what they did is we in North Jersey, They had Picatinny Arsenal that they had a task force for. Then they had another task force here at Fort Dix, Lakehurst, and they were all guardsmen that were mobilized, but they were taken away from the battalions. So when we got mobilized in 2004, we were minus almost 350 people. So Guard Bureau did is they mobilized different National Guard units, individual companies, and assigned them to us. Like our electronic maintenance company was from Missouri. Our truck company was from not Wisconsin, Minnesota. So, and the truck company came with a full, with 285 soldiers, complete, and the missile maintenance company was 100%. And then we got a lot of fillers from Florida and a lot of soldiers from California. That's how they plussed up the main support battalion so we could be, when we actually deployed to Iraq, we were at 110% strength. When we were in Iraq, we had 1,163 soldiers in country, boots on ground. We were the largest unit in the entire United States Army at that time. Because the Army had already shifted, they'd already gotten rid of main support battalions and went to brigade support battalions.
Can you compare how it felt to go overseas as a soldier the first time around, and then to go after having been in the Guard?
Yeah. Going to Korea was, you went, I was a kid, 19, 18. The Guard cutoff was age 58 to be deployed.
How old were you?
I'll get to that. I had to do a little wiggling. When we got mobilized, I was 57. So, but I was in shape, not out of shape like I am today.
I saw the pictures. Yes, you were.
And we were running every day. We were doing PT. I actually went to on the what they call the advance, where you go over to see the unit you're going to be replacing, and we checked them out, and then we brought some of our advanced people over at the same time. I turned 58 while I was in Kuwait, and I went to the girls in the S1 section, and I went, "Okay, Sergeant Major, as long as we get, don't worry. So nobody squealed on me that I turned 58.
What, you were supposed to be sent home?
Yeah, you were not allowed to deploy if you were 58.
But you already deployed, technically.
I know, technically, yeah. So I just kind of slipped through the door. I wanted to go. I mean, after you've been with a unit for 9 years, and then have that unit mobilized and not go,
yes,
then you're going to get the white feather for cowardness. Because we had over 56 people apply for discharge for various reasons. We did grant some of them because of sick parents or or medical issues, and unfortunately, one of the things that hit us the hardest was the full-time staff all bailed out on us. All the AGR guys, they didn't deploy. A few of them did, but not most of them got out.
Would they have lost their jobs?
No, well, they did eventually. By the time we came back, the battalion commander had called the state, the tag, and said, if we get back to Teaneck and those full-timers are still working there, he says, I'm going to my congressman. And what they did is they gave notice to all the ones that didn't go. That's it, you're out of here. And they finally cleaned house and got rid of them. But they skated for 22 months that we were deployed.
Was that General Glazer or Reith?
Reith, yeah.
Wow.
Where were we? Now we're off track. I forgot what we were talking about.
Well, I wanted to talk about that we went from Desert Storm, where your job wasn't guaranteed, your full-time job, if you
Right.
deployed, and now we're at the next Iraq war.
Yeah, well, where they said if you didn't go, you didn't have a job. You would deploy, and like I said, I wanted to go. You know, I was.
Wait a second. Did they say if you didn't go, you wouldn't have your job?
If you did not deploy, if you were non-deployable, see, one of the criteria of working full-time was that you had to be deployable. And if your unit got mobilized, you would go with the unit. You didn't get to stay in the rear with the gear.
That's very interesting. You have to be deployable
Yeah,
to be a full-time
right.
engineer.
Otherwise, you have to have some kind of a profile, and therefore, if you have a profile, you could not be in a mobilized unit that is eligible for mobilization. And we were, one
All
of
right.
those units.
And on the other hand, if you deploy, your job is guaranteed when you get back.
Right.
So that's a huge difference
Yeah.
now.
Now, see, I was full-time, but I was a technician, okay, in the main support. And I was during the week, I was the battalion military personnel technician, MPT, and I did basically office work. We did all the strength reporting and qualification stuff. So, I went as a technician. I had to take a leave of absence to go to deploy, and when I came back, I had a job, so and so did the AGR guys that went. They all had a job when they came back, because they went back to their unit and picked up where what we were doing before we left.
Did any have a choice of a new job now that house was cleaned by General Reed?
Yeah, a couple of them did.
Right.
Actually, one or two of them moved on to other units. One guy transferred to the Signal Battalion because it was closer to home for him, and one of the girls went to the medical company. Actually, she fell in love with the Delta Company first sergeant when we were in Iraq. So when they came back, they went to Missouri. So she left. She transferred.
Oh.
She transferred to Missouri.
Missouri National Guard.
They wound up getting married, and they got 2 kids. He wound up being a sergeant major, and now he's retired also.
That's nice you keep in touch.
But excuse me.
That's nice that you and your troops keep in touch.
We have there's a group New Jersey Iraqi war veterans is on Facebook, and then we have the 50th Main Support Battalion is on Facebook also. And I'm one of the guys that gives you permission to join. When you do the notification.
You're an admin.
Yeah.
Cool. Jack, do you have anything? Oh, I know. All right, so can you compare what it was like deploying with all men and then deploying with men and women?
Oh, what a... I found out the hard way. When I went to... from the engineers to the main support battalion, which had female soldiers,
Okay.
whereas the engineer battalion had all male soldiers, was a rude awakening. And I did get in trouble once or twice because...
You're old school.
Old school, yeah. I made some bad choice of words one or
Right.
2 times when one of the female soldiers complained. I says, look, this is, you like the paycheck, you got to do the work,
Oh, and what about in Iraq and Kuwait?
In Iraq and Kuwait, by then everybody, we don't forget we were at Fort Dix for 6 months training. Everybody was used to working together, as far as male and females. We still had a council of soldiers that fraternization, especially between officers and enlisted, was not allowed or authorized.
Even eating together? You couldn't eat
Oh, no,
together?
no, no.
Oh.
You did it. I'm talking about like
Socializing.
socializing, dating, you know.
What about the fact that females had really no rights in the country where you were?
That was a problem, especially in Kuwait. When we first got there and we were moving vehicles, we had to drive at night, because of the threat of terrorists. But at night you would see all the Kuwaiti women driving their Mercedes. Because the only time they could drive was at night also. Because during the day the men wouldn't allow them to drive.
That is so interesting.
Yeah, and in Kuwait, they were wearing all the burqas, where they only had the eye slit, and it was like, and if you went to any of the, like they had
Marketplaces?
the women would run away.
What about our women? Did they have to cover their hair?
No, but we weren't interact. One of the differences between Kuwait, Iraq, and Korea was you didn't get the chance to interface with the citizens
That's a good
because
point.
of the threat of getting killed. You didn't know who to trust.
I wanted to ask you that earlier when you said a North Korean would come across.
Yeah.
And you didn't know the difference between a North or South Korean.
No. Mm-mm. In Korea, it's not funny, but an incident happened. We, just like Reforger in Germany, they have the annual maneuvers in Korea where outside units come in. Well, outside unit had come in and they were patrolling an area above us, right on the bottom of the DMZ, right by the Imjim River. And they saw this other patrol coming, so they opened fire on them with blanks. The patrol they fired at was a Korean Army patrol, South Korean Army patrol. They returned fire with live ammo and killed every GI. Yeah. So after that, they said no more blanks. So they never saw blanks again. Whenever you were on the DMZ, you were carrying 2 hand grenades and 110 rounds of M14 ammo.
What about in the rest of your career? No more blanks?
No, in the Guard, we had a lot of blanks. We had a lot of fun with it. We did a lot of war gaming maneuvers. Even training at Fort Dix, did a lot of exercises with blanks, fire and maneuver.
What about 9/11?
9/11 was all live ammo.
Right.
Yeah. No grenades, though. We didn't trust the troops with grenades.
Can you imagine a grenade in the tunnel? Wow.
A couple times I was at the Lincoln Tunnel, and it was pretty cold, so I told one or two of the soldiers, the female soldier was shaking, she was freezing. I says, go back upstairs in the cafeteria, because we had access to the Port Authority police building there at the Lincoln Tunnel. So that's where our troops would warm up and eat a meal. So I said, go ahead, and I'll take your post. And what I was doing is we were checking trucks. And we'd stop the vehicle, and then we'd make the driver get out and open up the back of the truck to see what was in it. And back then, I never had anybody give me a hard time. And I did that for about 3 hours. And nobody said no. Everybody, because they understood why we were checking, to make sure it wasn't full of explosives or, some kind of device to blow the tunnel up.
Did you have to use mirrors to look underneath the trucks?
Yes.
Too?
Yeah. Yeah, the Port Authority supplied all that stuff.
Oh, right. And they had dogs with them, too?
Yes. Yeah, nasty dogs. Don't go near them. But the Port Authority police, both at the GW and the Lincoln Tunnel, were really nice guys. They would come around and and make sure that everybody was okay, especially when it was cold out. Make sure the shift commander is rotating people in and out so that they can warm up and get hot chocolate or coffee. So they were good. because we were doing them a favor. Port Authority took a big hit at 9/11. They lost in the Port Authority police building at the Lincoln Tunnel. They had about 23 pictures of the officers from there that were killed on 9/11 because they were in New York at the World Trade Center. They all died. So they were short-handed too. Yeah.
So they were grateful for your presence.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah.
All right, getting back to Iraq. Any other incidents besides the one that you described?
We had some fillers come in from another out-of-state maintenance company, and there was a female lieutenant who committed suicide in one of the armored personnel carriers that was in the motor pool. Evidently something had gone wrong at home, and she couldn't handle it, and committed suicide with her service weapon. Mm-hmm. And she was a lieutenant.
Tragic.
But because she wasn't officially ours, she was working with us.
Right.
She wasn't listed as a KIA for the battalion.
Mm-hmm.
Because now, since we've been back from Iraq, through the buddy check that goes on with the 50th MSB website, altogether, I think 5 soldiers have committed suicide since we're back.
Since 2005?
5. And one was last year. A kid from Patterson committed suicide.
What do you attribute it to? Brain injury? No.
No. Some of the people saw some really bad stuff that they weren't prepared for. Some of the people...
PTSD?
Yeah. And
You did too.
It affects a lot of people, so...
How do you cope with what you saw?
Try and put it away, you know. Don't talk about it.
I'm sure I'm sure while your wife was still living that she was a great support.
Yes.
To
Yeah.
you.
Yes.
I've noticed that throughout any war, that a veteran who either stays in or has a good marriage has the coping skills to get through all of that trauma that they witnessed.
Yeah. It means a lot. That's why, we tried to keep the family support group going while we were deployed. Each company left 3 soldiers at their home armories, wherever it may have been, to help the wives or husbands of the deployed soldiers if they needed help with anything. Mm-hmm. And that was very effective.
Did you say that while you were there that you did not have all of the hygiene items being mailed to you and by Girl Scout cookies and all that kind of
we
thing?
were getting a lot of care packages from home.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, different. The military transport club would mail us stuff. Mm-hmm. The family support would mail us stuff. The Felician nuns in Lodi would mail us stuff. So there were different groups mailing, and the packages would come, and it would say to any soldier. So what we would do is in the lounge in the battalion headquarters, we would put some of the packages, and whoever wanted whatever was in it, could open them up, take them, and then I would make sure that the individual companies got packages, and then when we were on convoy, I would try and bring packages to some of the outlying sites that we ran, because the battalion was spread out at 10 different locations, so there was a lot of places to go.
Oh, okay. That's good. I'm glad to hear that.
So they had a small PX, but it was, you on Spiker alone, there was over 3,000 guys. So they were always out of everything. So.
Oh, that makes sense then.
Yeah, because don't forget, it wasn't just our battalion. The aviation battalion was there. Transportation battalion was there. There was a USA or
Financial.
finance company.
Right, finance
Yeah.
company.
And then the division engineers were there too.
While you were there, was there a vote that happened for the
Yes,
civilians?
we were there for the first election, and I got to see firsthand what we were doing is we had to transport the concrete jersey barriers on our hammocks to the voting sites. And what they did is they blocked off the voting sites so they couldn't run a suicide bomber into the voting site. And while I was on the actual day of the election, I was standing at one of the voting sites with one of the crews that had just finished delivering some more concrete barriers. And a sheik in his full white garb comes out with three young 18, 19, 20-year-olds, and he says, see? And he says, hold up your fingers. So they held up their finger, and they had the ink.
I remember that.
Yeah. And this guy says, I make them vote. So it really...
It was a big deal
it was
for
a
them.
big deal, and it was the first public election. And for us, the 42nd Infantry Division made it happen.
So everyone was feeling good that day.
Yeah.
You must have really felt like you made a difference that
Yes,
you were
we
there.
did. And we all felt that things were going to get better.
How did it feel to know that you were coming home?
That was good. Well, we actually wound up coming home sooner than expected. We weren't supposed to come home until February of 2006. But what happened is the 82nd Airborne showed up 2 months earlier than they had told us they were coming, and they showed up with their duffel bag and individual weapon. They didn't have any vehicles, so it began a slow process of turning over our equipment to the 82nd so that they would have the same capabilities that we did. And then they ran out of, well, what do you do with all of these soldiers? Now you got twice as many soldiers and no building. So
Right.
we put up tents, and we were living in tents, and they got our buildings. So everybody went to their higher headquarters and said, hey, why are we hanging out here? Send us home. They don't want us, They're regular army. They look down at you, at the guard. So the higher to be said, start sending them home. So we got to work, and we started sending so many people. They had the S1 ran a roster, and they would send 300 at a clip. Started flying home.
While you were there, did anyone from the Guard come visit you?
Yes, the state sergeant major and the tag came.
Nice.
And it was funny because they came in I want to say August, and the average temperature was 120, and they were at our base for like 3 days, and State Sergeant Major Richie Atkins, I remember him, we're walking around and he's sweating. He is sweating.
I think you have a picture of him that I saw.
Yeah, and he looks at me and he says, "Don't you sweat?"
You're used to it.
I says, "I'm acclimated. I've been here since
yeah.
January."
What about any USO shows?
The governor also came with the tag back then.
The Gravy?
No.
Corzine?
Corzine, yeah. They had a couple USO shows, but there was a problem because they were always at Tikrit at division headquarters. So it wasn't a safe thing to do to run soldiers to go see a USO show when there was a chance of them getting blown up. So
That makes sense.
the only one or two shows came to Spiker, and they did it in the old soccer stadium so the troops could see. One was a country music band. I can't remember, not Billy Ray Cyrus, but another popular group.
The Dixie Chicks?
Excuse?
The Dixie Chicks?
No, they didn't come. They were probably at to Crete, but trying to think the name of the one actress. Her and her husband came. She was in the Dukes of Hazzard. She played the female.
Daisy Duke? Daisy
Yeah, in the remake.
Oh, in the remake.
Yeah.
Jessica
She,
Simpson?
who?
Jessica Simpson?
Yes, yeah, and her husband. Well, they were still married.
Oh, okay.
And I actually got an autograph from
Nick
her.
Lachey.
Yeah. So they did it. They put on a nice little show in
That was
the
nice.
in the gymnasium for us. And there was one other USO show. The General of the Army came, and they brought Gail Sayers, who was a Hall of Fame football player, and one of the stand-up comedians from, I don't know whether it was Saturday Night Live or whatever show it was from TV, and they put on a show, and that was a packed house. But you could only fit about 600 people in the place, you know. So, and it was good. That was the only, but there were other shows, but they didn't come to our base because, you know, we were more of a danger zone. I mean, even when Jessica Simpson came, they made her wear body armor, Kevlar helmet, you know,
Wow.
and they were like, holy crow, you know. And they said, you guys could. Division policy was you always had to have your helmet on, and you had to have your weapon with you, even when you're on the base, you know.
How did they come in? By helicopter?
Yeah, they flew in by Black Hawk.
Wow. How was it leaving Iraq?
We flew out of Spiker. They flew in a C-130, and I was one of the last groups out. And we had to leave a rear detachment at Spiker to finish the handoff of the accountability of the equipment, because basically the equipment belonged to New Jersey, and here we were giving it to the regular Army. So somebody's got to pay New Jersey back. So we had to leave a rear detachment, which basically most of the S4 and the logistics section, to get the accountability of the equipment. And then, as I said, we were leaving in groups of 300. And we flew out of Spiker. They flew us to Ali Al Salim, which was Air Force Base in Kuwait. And we waited there for about 5 days before they had a plane for us. And then they drove us to Baghdad International Airport, and we waited for the plane to land. Plane landed, then it had to be refueled and everything else. And then we boarded the plane, and well, the plane took off. Everybody was clapping.
How were communications for you?
We had
To whom?
you could every once in a while you could get you had a call at night. The phone call went to Germany, and then Germany would go under the transatlantic phone line to the States, and there it would go to a switchboard, and then that switchboard would call the number that you wanted. So I used to call my wife all the time, you know, and I would call her, you know, on her cell phone. And, you know, the one time she's in the ShopRite, and I call her, hey, how's it going, you know, and stuff like that. Most of the time what the soldiers did, not so much calling home, was email. Email was the best way to get information back and forth. Like whenever I was going on a convoy, I would email my wife telling her that we're going on the road, and I'll be gone for 5 or 6 days, so you won't hear from me, you know. But I'll let you know as soon as we get back. And I would tell all the troops to do the same thing, you know. And that worked. That was a good way to you know, get information back and forth.
And did she have support while you were gone of the other wives, other spouses?
Yes. Yeah. My wife didn't drive, so one of the other women would pick her up and take her to the armory. They had a food pantry in the armory, and my wife would go through and pick out a lot of the stuff, not for us, but for my daughter. My daughter had triplets in January of '05, right after I got to Iraq. And matter of fact, we found out right after we had been a minor firefight in Baghdad, and we had to go to Camp Cook to refuel. And the battalion commander came up while I was laying on the hood of my Humvee and says, "Congratulations." I says, "What? I'm getting through Baghdad?" He says, "No, didn't you hear?" I said, "No." He says, "Your daughter had the triplets." I said, "Hey!" So that was a big. It made the Star Ledger.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you know ahead of time the genders of the babies?
Yes, yeah. Now, family support came to my rescue right after my daughter had the babies. When she finally went home, all three were home because they didn't come home right away because they were a month premature, which is pretty good for triplets from what they tell me. My wife was going to my daughter's house in Branchville, New Jersey, which is up where we are, all the way up north. And she says, I need to help my daughter. And her boss gave her a hard time. And my wife says, well, I'll take my leave. And her boss says, no, you can't take leave now. I need you here. So she kind of coerced my wife into resigning her job. And she said, okay, you can go. So the following week, I found out from my wife that she had resigned. I said, why? So she told me what happened. And then I called our senior E7 family support group, which was Sergeant First Class Minnie Heller, who is African American. And I told her what happened, and she was appalled. She says, no way. I says, yes. She goes, all right. So I gave her all the information where she worked. She worked for the Borough of Leonia as a recreation secretary. I says, go to the Borough Hall and ask to speak to the Borough Administrator. And I gave her name, too. They showed up the next day. Three of them, Minnie Hiller and two of her sergeants went with her, all females. And they went in uniform, in desert uniform,
wow.
DCUs, the DCUs. And they went in and they the receptionist says, what do you want? Oh, we want to talk to Rosemary Bammert's boss, Barbara Davison. And they said, well, she's not here now. And she said, okay, we want to talk to the borough administrator. Well, she's busy. You can't talk to her. So Sergeant Heller says, no problem. We'll just sit here and wait until Channel 7 News shows up, and then we'll tell them our side of the story. So she ran upstairs to tell the borough administrator, and next thing I know, Rosemary was allowed to retire with 18 years service, on the job. She got she got a retirement, she got a pension, they paid her sick leave and her annual leave. Because they said, we're going to Channel 7 News. And
wow.
Yeah, so, and that happened not just to me, but to other people too. And that's why that family support thing was so important.
It's the kind of story that you don't even think they would be good at helping you with.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. Yeah, well, I tell everybody the story. I says, oh, yeah. She says, no problem. She says, well, let's wait here until Channel 7 shows up. And we'll tell them our side of the story. And then you can tell them your side of the story. And we'll see who believes what,
Right.
Here's this guy in Iraq, and you make his wife quit a job. And really, that shows you how,
To help take care of triplets that you're not even going to meet for another year.
Yeah. Yep.
Let's talk about you meeting the triplets.
That made the paper too. The same reporter that was we had what they called embedded reporters with us. We had two. We had a photographer and a reporter from the New Jersey Herald for the whole year that we were there. What he did is he called the states, and he had another reporter come to our house in Pagoda the day my daughter was going to come while I was home on R&R leave. For my 15 days R&R. She brought the triplets, so I got to meet them for the first time. And the reporter was there and took pictures of me, playing with the triplets.
Are they all boys?
2 girls and a boy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're 15 now and they're freshmen in high school.
Nice.
But to get home, because the DISCOM commander and I didn't see eye to eye about the way he ran things, they wouldn't let me go home on leave. So they said, no, the only way you can go home is if it's emergency leave. So I communicated to my wife, who, being a crafty individual she was, went out and made her own wedding invitation, saying that my brother was getting married, and because my mother was very sickly, I needed to go home to be at the wedding, and maybe the last time to see my mother. So I submitted all the paperwork, and it went over the DISCOM commander's head, and one of my friends in the Division S1 section approved it, and I got to go home.
So it's not like they investigate if there's really going to be a wedding?
No.
Nobody has time for that.
Yeah. Well, this the idea that the DISCOM commander was just, says, no, you can get your R&R at the end of the tour, which I said make no sense. So I went home in July. I actually landed in the States on July 4th.
What was it like going back to Iraq after having been home?
Terrible. If I had to do it again, I wouldn't have come home.
It's even harder, right?
It was even harder knowing, and you got to get back into the grind.
Yeah.
There's like, right in.
And acclimating to the weather.
Yeah. Back in, and then going out on patrols, in convoys, with that danger every day.
Mm-hmm. Were you in touch with home every day?
No.
It was too hard.
Yeah, no, it was too busy. I mean, you were working, till 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, and then you're up at 4:30.
Sounds like you had some busy, hard shifts of work all through your career.
Yeah.
All right, so when you got back here, what was your homecoming like then?
We landed at McGuire, and we made guard life, the picture of us coming off the plane. Mm-hmm. The old man said, when we get off this plane, everybody in the airport's going to know that the main support battalion's back. So he, Sergeant Major is responsible for the battalion colors. And so I carried the battalion colors on the plane. And then I had my 2 drivers. One guy carried the New Jersey flag, and my driver carried the battalion colors. And that's the picture of the battalion commander, me, and the other, Joe Rios and Jason coming off the plane with battalion colors. And 2 of the former battalion commanders, the state sergeant major, the tag, a bunch of politicians, they were all there on the runway when we were coming off the plane. So everybody was clapping. They were like, yeah. Mm-hmm. So, and everybody on the plane was clapping too. They were like, oh my God. But they bussed us over to Dick's and put us up in the same crappy barracks that we were in before we shipped out. And the first thing they did is take everybody's weapon away, and then shake everybody down again for ammunition, just to make sure that nobody smuggled anything home. And when we were in Kuwait, we got searched twice. Everything, unrolled socks, you had to lay everything out. And the MPs came through with dogs, and they physically went through everything you had, just to make sure that you weren't bringing anything illegal home. Mm-hmm. But I called my wife. I says, I'm here. I'm back. I says, where are you? She says, I'm on the turnpike coming up from Maryland with your cousin's wife. So I says, okay, I didn't think anything of it. About an hour later, I get another phone call from my wife. Says, can we pick you up? So I went and asked the old man. I says, hey, how about you let me go home tonight? I mean, I just got home. We just landed in New Jersey. He says, as long as you bring back the staff car. Now, the staff car was my POV, because when we got mobilized, they took away the GSA car that we had. So I would lend out my car whenever a staff officer needed to go somewhere. So they were driving my POV, So I said, I'll be back tomorrow morning with B66. That's my license plate. It says Army Guard, B66. He says, get out of here. He says, I'll call the gate and tell them to hold your wife. So we did. He called the gate, and they were waiting at the gate for me. And he'll be there in 15 minutes, and one of the warrant officers drove me over to the gate. And then we drove home.
Oh.
It was great. I was like, wow. It was really good. It was a nice feeling. Like, oh, I'm done. I'm done. And I knew I had a year to go in the Guard when I came back.
Oh, okay.
So I had the 2006 to do. And then what I did is I retired from the full-time job in August of 2006. And then I was retired from the Guard on January 1st, 2007, because of age 60. And then they had a retirement party for me at the Saddlebrook VFW, and this is before Uber, but I had to take a taxi home because I was in no shape to drive. Mm-hmm. But it was good. It was a very nice event. And at that event, at the retirement party, they presented me the Legion of Merit that was signed by General Andre, the Raging Cajun, who I met at Fort Dix when we were mobilized. He came to visit Fort Dix and wanted to know why the 42nd was taking so long to get combat ready. So I took him around with the battalion commander and the S3, and we showed him that the facilities that the Army gave us was terrible. They had us working in the old ammo dump, where it was nothing but mud. Everything, the trucks were getting stuck in the mud. We had no storage facility, and we had no internet capability. With the new SARS system, everything, you order all the parts online, and then it comes by UPS, or would come to the main distribution point at Damara, and we would go pick it up. So he was appalled. So he called a staff meeting that night. Now, it was Friday night. And most of the other units at Fort Dix, they all hightailed it out of there Friday night. They don't want no part of, any. So only a couple battalion commanders were there. I was the only command sergeant major that was there. So he's standing there, and after he gets done yelling at us for not being ready, he says, go around the room, stand up and introduce yourself and tell me, what your job is, and who you are, and who you work for. So finally, my battalion commander, he stands up, tells him who he is. I stand up, tell him, battalion command sergeant major, main support battalion. And then the S3 stands up and tells him, who he is. So he got done going around all the tables, and he says, "Command sergeant major, stand up again." I figured I'm in trouble. This guy will tear your head off. He says, "You see this? He's the only command sergeant major here. You battalion commanders that don't have your CSM here, you ought to go back and fire him." He says, "This guy looks after his troops." So the post commander, he's going like this to me. He's going, "Where you go, Rich?" So I made everybody else look bad. Boy, did I hear about it. They all came, "You bum, you." They said, "Hey, I stand by my battalion commander." He said, "We're going to the meeting." We went. We didn't go home. We stayed. Yeah.
That's good.
That was interesting. And then when I got my Legion of Merit, there was a note attached to the paperwork. It said, "Command Sergeant Major, I remember you from that cesspool at Fort Dix." Andre, Colonel, and Lieutenant General Raging Cajun, whoever he signed it, But I thought that was really great. I have it
Obviously,
framed.
you remember him too.
Yeah. He was, all on wheels, boy. And when Katrina hit, we were in Iraq. So there was a unit there from Louisiana. They let them go home. They shipped them out back to New Orleans, so they could take care of business. So we stayed and watched it on TV.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you saw the Guard helping there too. The Air Guard.
And we saw General Andre. He was in charge of the relief effort for Katrina.
Goodness.
Yeah.
I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, he's a tall, very slender, light-skinned black man.
Yes.
Foul mouth.
Seen him on TV.
Foul mouth, boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So it was, it's this funny set of circumstances, and that gives credence to what I used to tell a lot of my soldiers. I says, look, I don't care if you're getting out or what you're doing or where you're going. I said, be nice to whoever you're talking to, because you never know when that's going to come back and bite you in the ass. And then a lot of guys came back and said, Sergeant Major, that was good advice. It worked.
You mentioned earlier that you used your GI Bill when you got out of the Guard.
Yeah. When I got out of the regular Army, I was too busy working and raising a family. But as it became mandatory in the Guard, when they started with Select Train and Promote, STPA, you had to have a minimum 2-year college to get, above the rank of E7. So I was already in E7. As a matter of fact, I was in E8. So I saw the handwriting on the wall. I says, up. So back then, the Guard had a program where you could get, it paid for about 65% of your college credits. And, you had to go to, you had to come here to Seagirt. George Pappendorf was the officer in charge at the time. So I signed up, and I was going to Sussex Community College in Bergen County, nights. And then they had another program where they called it the Life Skills Assessment, where you could bring in all your paperwork for everything you did in your life, and you sat down with a counselor. It was like a day-long deal here at Seagirt in Colonel Zolonowski's old office up there in Building 1, and you got college credits through Riot College, and you had to pay. There was a percentage that you had to pay for this, but that enabled me, that program plus all the night school enabled me to get enough credit for a 4-year college. Even though I don't have the college degree because I didn't graduate a college, but I had enough credits, and that made me eligible to go to the Sergeant Major Academy.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. So I took advantage of the Guard education program, and I used to push it to all my subordinates. It says, you guys got to do this. But it was the same story. Most of these guys are all working, or husbands and wives who are married with families, and
it's hard to go to school at night when you're working full time and have a family.
Even for the Sergeant Major Academy, that's a 2-year correspondence course that you're taking with 9 major block tests. And I used to have to go to Fort Dix, to the Learning Center, and they would have a regular monitor, a proctor, and it was a time test, and they would watch you take the test, and then they would send it to Fort Bliss to get scored.
How far was Fort Dix for you from home?
From when I lived in Pagoda, it was 73 miles one way.
The times have changed with all the heavier traffic. It takes longer, right?
Yeah, I'm sure. Now, all those block tests you did enabled you to get to the final portion, which was the 3 weeks at the Sergeant Major Academy at Fort Bliss, Texas. and that was when you finally got done. First thing you did is you had to process in, and then the next morning at 4:30 in the morning, you took the Army PT test, and you did it in the darkness because it got so hot at Fort Bliss that if you did it during the day, you'd probably pass out. So the only thing that we actually did it, and when it was daylight, was the 2-mile run, and because I had to go early because there was a difference between command sergeant majors and sergeant majors. The command sergeant majors had to go to the pre-course and process in. I was there, I think, 6 days altogether earlier than the regular sergeant majors. So by the time the other guys from New Jersey showed up, because there was 5 of us going, I had already taken the PT test, and they showed up, and Fort Bliss was still building barracks. So Danny Tabor, who was the training guy for all the full-timers, he put us up in a Radisson Hotel in El Paso, Texas. So, they showed up and they said, I'm smiling. They said, oh, I guess you passed the PT test. Yep, and I passed the weigh-in too. This is your turn tomorrow, guys. So, it was a very intense course. They broke it down into groups of between 10 and 14 people. It's like small group study. And you had a facilitator who was your instructor. And out of my group, we started with, I think, 14. Only 9 of us graduated. Yeah. They didn't care. The day you failed, if whatever that part of, you were on the plane, either that night or the next day. You were gone that fast. When we processed in, they told us that our class had started with over 1,000 students, and we were now down to about 600. And out of the 600, only around 520 graduated. So, if anybody ever tells you it's an easy course, they're lying.
Right.
In the old days, you didn't have to go to Sergeant Major Academy. It was the good old boy day. You just got promoted, because so-and-so liked you or had worked with you somewhere along your career. And then when the slot opened up, they put you in for promotion. There was no schooling, nothing, so the new system is good. It's much better than the old one. At least you have to be eligible with all the credentials to be the sergeant major, which
And
is
qualified.
good. Qualified, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about the VA? Did you sign up for anything with them?
Yes. Matter of fact, the VA did my cataract surgery. I had the cancer on the hands taken off last year. And when I asked the dermatologist, she says, all you guys that were in Iraq all have the same thing because you had your hands on the steering wheel.
Oh.
And the sun was coming through the bulletproof glass, and it magnified it.
Oh, my gosh.
I says, yeah, but sometimes I wore gloves. And most of the time I didn't because they were too hot,
Right.
But she says, yeah, she says that all you guys. She says, all the time.
Wow.
When I was processing out at Fort Dix, I wound up in a medical hold company because I injured my knee in Iraq during a rocket attack. One of the things they used to do, they used to have anchor a barge in the Tigris River and shoot Katyusha rockets at our base. They didn't care where they landed, but just to keep you up at night. So that was a major, that or they would fire mortar rounds. So one night we were in a battalion headquarters building, and a B Company Convoy was overdue. So we were all up looking at the Blue Force tracker, which was a way to track the convoy by satellite. And all of a sudden we heard an explosion in the back of the building. Then we heard an explosion in front of the building.
Uh-oh.
And we says, uh-oh. So the
Zero,
old man
yeah.
says, everybody out. They're bracketing the building, which is what they used to do. So everybody would throw your IBA on, your Kevlar, your weapon, and we run out the front door to the bunker, what they called them. They were concrete dog houses. That's what they called them. You know, they're open on the ends, but the idea was that at least you're protected, you know. On the way to the bunker, I was a little too far to the right, and I ran into one of the Jersey barriers that we had put there so that a suicide bomber couldn't drive a vehicle into the battalion headquarters
Was it
building and
dark?
blow it up. Excuse me?
Was it dark? You're running in the dark?
Oh, yeah. At night, at 9 o'clock, all the lights on the external lights on the base were turned off so that the bad guys couldn't have a registration point on the base. And every once in a while, they would catch an Iraqi that was working on the base that was pacing off different targets. So, and the Iraqi police would come and take them away.
Wow.
So I ran into the Jersey barrier. I hit it with my right knee. I flipped over. I was knocked unconscious. I'm laying there. They get to the bunker, sound off. They did a head count, and it says, "Where's the sergeant major?" Uh-oh. You two guys, go look for him. And they found me laying on the other side of the Jersey barrier, knocked out. They
Is that
woke me
when
up.
you hurt your shoulder too?
Yeah. I actually, this finger was knocked out of the socket. I wound up at Walter Reed after we came back. And they x-rayed. I had to go for physical therapy for my knee. I wound up getting a 70% disability.
That's good.
Yeah.
You deserve it.
Yeah. Well, they wanted to send me home because my knee was like this. They not send me home. We're going to send you to Landstuhl, Germany, which was a one-way ticket home. Nobody ever came back. We had guys hurt. They sent them to Germany for medical care. You never saw them again. You know. So I says, no, I ain't doing that. I says, I'll sit here with a bag of ice on my knee. So that's what I did for over a week. You know, and
it got better?
yeah. I could walk. You know.
So how'd you end up at Walter Reed then?
Because thinking ahead, I knew that I was going to need documentation.
Oh.
So I went to.
Good for you.
I went to Walter Reed, and I got.
While you were still in the Guard?
Yes, I was still in. I got disability for my hearing, my knee, and my hand, and my shoulder.
Do you know what happened with your hearing or when that happened?
Over a 37-year career firing firearms, to include the 50-pound cratering charges, you know, at Fort Drum. Yeah, eventually your hearing goes bad. But the biggest thing was in the Humvees, I'm in the passengers or driver's seat. You're wearing those defective earplugs that they gave us that now, if you watch TV, you see call this law firm. They're brown and yellow. Yeah, and they didn't stop. And the gunner's firing the 50 cal right there. You're sitting right there.
Oh, okay, right.
And, you know, it's just inevitable, you know. So it was just one of the things. Everybody that went on Convoy, I'm sure, has the same kind of problems with their hearing. You know, I got hearing aids from the VA. I'm not wearing them today because I'm lazy, you know. But I go to the VA on a regular basis. I have my VA card.
Good for you.
That says disability service connected. So I pay for nothing, which is the way I like it. To include, we have a local clinic now up by us in Newton. I have a regular. That doctor is my healthcare provider. She takes care of my prescriptions, and it's good. I like it personally. You know, I think it's a very good system. Going to East Orange was not always pleasant because that's where you got to go to get your eyeglasses.
Oh.
Yeah, and initially that's where I went for the hearing test, but now I go to Lyons, which is a much nicer facility. The Lyons campus, you know, well maintained by it's run by the New Jersey Department of Veterans Affairs.
Right.
Yeah. So it's It's nice. That's where the dermatologist was that did my hands. Very, very nice. And I had to go there for an ultrasound, and the young lady that worked on me was very, very nice. Well, I haven't had a problem, you know. East Orange it's tough because of the environment the hospital's in.
Oh.
You know, it's whereas some of the other locations seem the staff is much nicer, more caring. You know. So,
It's good to know.
yeah. I tell everybody, I says, go to VA, go to the VA. I was telling everybody,
Good
go
for
to the
you.
VA. I says, if I can do it, you can do it. Oh, what about the paperwork? I says, I'll help you. You know, I filled out, I went to a guy that was in the Guard. He's a VA assistant. He has an office in Bloomfield, and he's the guy I went to, and he helped me with my VA claim. And everybody, back then, everybody was saying it's going to take you 2 years. I got my claim approved in 3 months. I didn't get 100%, which is what I was shooting for, because they said, well, you know, you still have the use in your hand, so, you know, that's, you know, you're not going to get it. And I had hypertension when I came back, and they said, that's not our fault. I said, you try driving around in a Humvee with people blowing up
from
roadside
stress,
bombs.
yes.
You know, you let me know if you're going to have... how come when I went there, I had brown hair. When I came back, I was all gray.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's just the fear. Anybody that tells you they're not scared, they're lying. Every day, every time we went out, I was scared. Because you never knew what was going to happen. And there's so many incidents that, you know, things went on. And you just had to be careful.
Always on your guard.
You're always on your guard. Even dealing with the few times that we had to deal with the different Iraqi politicians or the mayor. There was an incident where a rifle range where everybody would go shoot once a month was outside the wire at our base. So we would just shoot out into the desert. Unfortunately, a young Arab Iraqi was out there, a 9-year-old, or was 8, and was killed by the live fire. So I had to go with the Discom XO and negotiate with the kid's parents
Right.
for what it was worth
Right.
to pay off his parents.
Right.
And the day that we went there, I had my sidearm, my 9mm, and I had another 9mm tucked in my belt under my body armor, just in case. And I had my driver standing at the door on full auto with his M4 carbine and the safety order, because we didn't trust them as far as you could throw them. Yeah, it was...
You never know what you're walking into.
Right. We went to a place called Camp Caldwell, which was right from Caldwell. You can see the Iranian mountains, because we had a detachment there. Part of our mental health detachment was there, because we had psychiatrists with us who did a booming business.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, yeah, and we would check on them, and we had another repair team there too. So. While we were there, I lost my train of thought now.
Camp Caldwell?
Yeah. Trying to think of... We were there one night, and they used to get mortared all the time. Well, they got mortared, and we heard the return fire going out, because at Caldwell they had the range-finding radar up on these man-made mountains that they built, and they put the radar sets up there, and it was constantly going. So whatever a round came in, they could fire a round back, trace it right back to where it was going. So they fired back, and then we had two Hammets, which were the big, heavy. They hauled the M1 Abrams tank, and anything else you want to use. We had 2 teams there, and that's why I went to Caldwell to find out when they were coming back, because the sergeant major, the command sergeant major at the 253rd Forward Support Battalion wouldn't release them to come back, because what they were doing is, after they would get mortared, the next day they would go into the town with one of the Hemmets, or both Hemmets, with M8, D8 bulldozer on it. They would combat offload it, and then they would knock down 2 or 3 houses and say, "You keep shooting at us, we're going to keep knocking down houses."
Oh.
And the guys that drove the Hemmets, they were treated like gods, So the battalion commander wouldn't release them, because he says, "I need these guys." So we let them stay. But what I did do is I made them start swapping out, so other guys got a chance to go there and see what was going on. Mm-hmm. So the same guys didn't become complacent at their job.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. And another incident that happened, I had pictures of, which is one of the reasons why I got the Bronze Star. Patrol Base Olson was a small mansion on the Tigris River in Samara, which is enemy territory. And we had a water purification unit there, which is called a ROPU, reverse osmosis purification. It was the latest thing. And I have pictures of the water from the Tigris River and the water from the ROPU. You got brown and you got clear. And before our guys got there, the infantry company that was there, it was I think it was Company B of the 111th Pennsylvania Army National Guard, which is Ben Franklin's battalion out of Philadelphia. They were there with about 90 guys. They were drinking bottled water. And the bottled water, because a lot of it came from Syria or from Egypt, was very high in one of the elements, and guys were getting gallstones from it and getting sick, because especially the stuff is stored in the heat, so it's left out. So our water purification guys were like a godsend to this infantry company. So the bad guys blocked all the roads leading to their base. Now the infantry would go out during the day in their armored personnel carriers, their M113s, and then they would come back in at night. Well, the day before we got there, the bad guys drove up to the front gate with a suicide taxi, and the guy blew himself up, killed 3 of the Pennsylvania guardsmen, and blew the gate, blew it up. So what they had to do, they had to park the armored personnel carrier where the gate used to be, and put more people on a guard. So we found out from our guys that they weren't getting any fresh food. They were running out of MREs. So my boss, the colonel, says, "Sergeant Major, sounds like Sergeant Major business." He says, "You need to get a convoy down there with supplies and find out what's going on." So I organized a convoy, and off we went. And to get to this base, there was what they called the 7 steps of hell. Every time you made a left turn, you got shot at. And then you went right, and then you got shot at again. So, I mean, we got the Olson. I had 34 dings in my Humvee, where the bullets had hit the plate on the outside. And the infantry guys couldn't believe that we got through. They said, I can't believe it. And we called back, and the water purification guys were so happy to see us. I got pictures of them hugging me and everything else. And they had their little water tanks set up, and you could see how high the sandbags are piled higher than these walls, to keep the small arms fire from getting to them. And it was just, they were just happy. So we walked out, and I said, "Well, what are you guys doing? We brought you all of these MREs. We brought you, a lot of stuff from that we hijacked from the mess hall, whatever we could transport. We didn't have to worry about going bad." So the guy said, "Oh, come on down." One of my guys, Sergeant Aranio, "Come on, Sergeant Major, come with me. and I'll show you our kitchen. He takes me down the basement of this old mansion, and there's a 2-burner Boy Scout stove. This is, what are you using this for? Oh, this is how we make hot water. That's it? You don't cook? No. Once a week, maybe, they'll fly in some Mermites, and we'll get hot chow just for that day, though. But the rest of the time, we're eating MREs. So it's unacceptable. And so the next day we left, and when we got back to Spiker, I went to, we had a warrant officer called Mike Lehner, who was the scrounger. And I says, I need 2 fill ranges. I need a bunch of the cook gear to go with it. And I went to the S4, and I got 2 of the cooks, and we set up a roster where they would go for a couple weeks at a time, and they would cook for these guys.
Wow.
So and then we got made a deal with the aviation that they would drop off A rations twice a week, so they would have food to cook rather than just making MREs. And that worked out really good. The guys loved it. So I was a hero.
Yes, you are a hero.
The old man didn't put that in my thing. They had to do the standard write-up for my bronze star, but he says I would have put it in there if I could have got away with it. He put me in with valor, but they knocked it down. They just gave it for meritorious service.
But what a difference you must have made just for morale.
Oh,
right,
yeah.
for them.
Yeah, after that. And it got to the point where the cooks were coming up to me in the mess hall and complaining that it was their turn to go to Patrol Base Olson, and somebody else went. And they were saying, it's not fair, Sergeant Major. It's my turn. I want to go. Because the word was out that, you got it made there. You're cooking for these guys, infantry guys. They're going to take care of you. They gave them a room. Because there were like 10 guys to a room. They gave the cooks their own room, and they gave the water purification section a room. There was 6 guys from the water platoon there. So the infantry guys really went out of their way to take care of them. And their company commander put a bunch of the guys in for the Army Achievement Awards, which they all got. He wrote them up and gave them to I got them to the S1, and we presented them to the soldiers, at the award ceremony in February of 2006 at the Armory.
For the cooks?
No, for the cooks. Well, we had a mail there, the guys from the cooks that got written up because they were from a different state. But the water purification guys were all from the Teaneck Armory, so they all got their medals. And another funny story, I don't know if I told you. I think I did in one of the when they had that whole award ceremony and all the politicians were there.
Okay.
You
wrote me a letter about that.
I'm handing out the medals, and when I was done, I got back in line with the rest of the staff. And then the S1 there says, will the following individual report front and center to the battalion commander? And she reads off my name. I look, and she goes, go. So I get up there and I report in front of the battalion commander. I salute, report, And she says over the loudspeaker system, the following individual is awarded the Korean Defense Medal for service in the Republic of Korea from 1965 to 1966. And the place went nuts. Hey, Sergeant Major. My wife was crying. I was crying. The old man says, you're crying. I said, yeah. I never expected this, That was really something.
Mm-hmm. So that's 40 years later.
Yeah.
And after he pinned the medal on your uniform, the old man announced, I had no idea I was getting the medal. You had no idea you were getting the medal.
Right.
And you were proud. He was proud to surprise you with the award for someone who always put the 50th Main Support Battalion before self. After the ceremony, the Alpha Company Supply Sergeant presented you an old beat-up M1 steel pot to go with your award.
Yeah.
Many years later,
They made me put it on, too.
You gave it to your grandson, one of the triplets, and told him to never give it away or sell it, as it was a part of history past. What great memories of your service to this great country of ours. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it kind of gets you choked up.
Yes. So who put in for the Korea Medal for you?
Evidently, when we were at Fort Dix, out processing, the personnel section that was there, which was another out-of-state mobilized unit, saw that I had served in Korea. Then they went to my awards and decorations, and it wasn't on there. So they put me in for it, and that's how I got it.
And they never told you, obviously.
No. Total surprise.
Right.
Blew me away. It was good.
It's like you had come full circle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
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 So are you a member of the Disabled American Veterans?
No.
What are you a member of?
American Legion. Yeah. I've been in the Legion for going on 35 years now. So one of the things we did, whoever wanted to join the American Legion, when we were getting mobilized, I was a commander of the Pagoda American Legion post 117. We let them join our post, and the post paid their dues for the whole time that they were mobilized. When we came back, a few people stayed. Most of them got out. Got out of the American Legion, but a few stayed. So it was good. But for the Legion, I'm the what they call a county service officer, and that if there's a veteran in distress or a family member of a veteran or somebody that needs help, once they get in contact with the county commander, he calls me and gives me the information, and then I try and contact the individual and see if there's any way I can help him, or we can. And we had a Legionnaire who had to go for kidney dialysis, and he had no transportation. So we worked out a schedule where different members would go to the house, pick him up, and take him to the dialysis center, and then transport him home until he was done getting his treatment. So that worked out good. They're little things, but you never know what's going to turn up on that one.
Did you mention earlier that you also do presentations?
Yes. Yeah, I've done a few presentations at high school, and I did last year I did a presentation for the Daughters of the American Revolution, and I brought my uncle's World War II uniform. I brought my M1 and gave a talk on all the stuff, because I talked about the mobilization of the United States Army for World War II, which was similar to what Washington did in the American Revolution. In Sussex County, where we are, there was a organized militia to fight the Indians. So when the revolution came, they annexed this militia into the Continental Army, and they almost by doing it in all the other states, they doubled the size of the Continental Army. And it was the same thing what they did in World War II. They mobilized the 19 Guard divisions, September 19th, 1940, and in one day they doubled the size of the Army by mobilizing all the National Guard units. And what I did is I related to how what you think was, never be seen again during the Revolution, but was done again for World War II, and how it saved both countries. America twice, really.
Right.
Yeah. They got it. I got a little certificate from the ladies at the DAR. Plus, we got a luncheon out of it. My wife loved it.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. And I also did for the DAR a couple of years ago. I did a thing about the role of the militia or the National Guard for 9/11, and how we were involved in the bridge and tunnel missions. Mm-hmm. And one of the ladies took one of my little photo album books, and she blew up some of the pictures. And one of them she blew up was me standing guard, walking guard on the GW Bridge. Mm-hmm. So and they liked that too. That was good. My wife said, "Where did you get all this stuff?"
Did we leave anything out? We'll film all this shortly.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay.
You know, I'll probably remember something later. You know, I have CRS, so, you know.
That's okay. Rich, I want to say that we are honored and humbled
Yeah.
that you came today to
Yeah.
speak to us of your sacrifices and contributions that you made in service to our country. And thank you, and God bless you.
No, thank you so much. Thank you for asking me to come. You know, I really, the only thing is, can I get a copy of this, or?
Absolutely, yes.
Oh, yes.
I'll work on it. I'll make
Yeah.
you a DVD copy.
Yeah, and what I'll do is, I'll dig up those DVDs,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll make copies of them, and I'll send them to you.
Oh, I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Plus, I'll give you some of these pictures, because I have extras on a lot of them.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
Oh, that
yeah.
will work too.
Yeah,
Thank you, Rich.
yeah.
All right. Outstanding job.
Oh. Well, you did force me to go through, and I wrote down over the last couple of days all the
Oh.
things that I did, and you know, and it got the brain working.
Oh, you're a natural at this then.
So,
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Rich.
all right. Yeah.
Coming off the plane.
Nice label pictures.
Inside the Hummer.
This is a patrol base Olson.
Oh, happy soldiers.
And this is the difference in the water from the river versus the Ropew.
Clearly, there is a difference. The river, water, and the Ropew.
That's the day we got to Olson to break the siege. You see how red our faces are? That's from the heat.
That's you on the right then, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's General Petersky is the other guy. He was general
Interesting.
for a day. Mark Petersky.
Yes. Interesting.
That's me in action. Now, you're wearing that stuff every day. Yeah, you're in shape or you're dead.
You just reminded me for some reason that you did send me pictures before we scheduled you,
Yeah.
and you're in my video montage.
Right.
What is this?
That's just flying from one location to another. That's one of the few places where, along the rivers, they're able to pump water so they can grow crops. So it's not a total desert.
So that's why you see some green in the desert.
Mhm.
Yeah. Very squad uniform. Wow, that haircut. Flat top, they call it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
These were from slides, which is why I tried to adjust the color, but
Jack, can I have that picture I gave you?
This one?
Yes. When you first went in.
you got to do this one too. That's when another IED had gone off right in front of us, and I smashed my hand into the dashboard of the Hummer. And the old man says, "You ain't getting no Purple Heart. Just get a Band-Aid."
Oh, Alexis
And you
read
see
that in the
medics,
caption, yes.
the medics put mercurochrome all over the cut.
Oh, gosh, that is funny. Is that the convoy that you described?
No, this is a different convoy.
Oh, okay.
There was a Turkish driver in the truck. We rescued the driver, but the truck burned up. So we just let it
So you
burn.
always had to be watching for IEDs, and it could just be some trash along the road.
Yep. Or a dead bush. That was always, they dig up the bush. This is 2-inch thick bulletproof glass, and it shattered from the IED.
No, what I want to know is what 140 degrees feels like.
Oh, no.
No, you don't
Let me
want it.
see. Let me see, Alexis. Oh, my goodness.
That's crazy.
This is what the craters would look like from the IEDs. They would put them. They would try and do 5. You can see there's others. The idea is they would try and get you to stop in the kill zone, and then they would try and hit you with a rocket-propelled grenade RPG.
It was important to not stop.
Right, to drive through. And Sergeant Francis survived 3 different trucks being blown out from underneath them, and I took him off the road, and he went to the IG and complained. The IG said, "You're lucky the Sergeant Major's looking after you. 3 times and you're still here." You know.
You didn't want to press his luck.
Yeah, this is what the inside of his truck looked like.
Oh, gosh.
Got it?
Yeah. Wow.
And this was the truck he was hauling. That's what it's all burned up.
Oh.
Then the assistant division commander came and gave all those guys Army Commendation medals. And it's a typical desert road, nothing. But they would dig foxholes, cover themselves with a tarp, and then as you drove by, they would jump up from out of the sand and fire at you.
Huh.
You got these already. And that was the battalion sign.
Oh, nice.
Get it?
Yes, thank you. Okay, thanks.
In Korea, in the Signal Battalion, one of the radio relay sites that was important to division headquarters went down, and they flew that helicopter in to Camp Red Cloud to pick me up, and that's
Wow.
I took this through the bubble.
Came out pretty well, considering you did.
And we're going to this spot up on the mountain. And I had it's a radio site. That's another, sure. This is the landing pad, and that's the Quonset hut where the radios were, and the track and carrier stuff. That's the trail that the infantry used to go up and down to guard the place. And here's the helicopter after I got off. Now they flew me up. I had to walk out.
Yes, thank you.
DMZ.
It's a great picture.
That's DMZ. You can see that way in the distance there's a village.
Okay.
That was the radio relay site.
That's you a day on the job. Right?
This one I think you already got. I don't know if you have that or not. This is the bridge of no return. That's the only bridge over the Imjim River on the way to Panmunjom.
Is that where the prisoners came across?
Yes.
Oh.
And here's the conference table at Panmunjom.
You were there?
Yeah. I went on a tour from Camp Red Cloud.
On, like, your day off?
Yeah. That's the ship I went to Korea on.
Oh, you mentioned that. Okay. And that month on that ship's counted as part of your 13-month
Yes,
tour?
yeah.
I read that later.
DMZ.
It's a great picture.
That's DMZ. You can see that way in the distance there's a village.
Okay.
That was the radio relay site.
That's you a day on the job, right?
This one I think you already got. I don't know if you're in on that. This is the bridge of no return. That's the only bridge over the Imjim River on the way to
that right?
Panmunjom.
Is that where the prisoners came across?
Yes.
Oh.
And here's the conference table at Panmunjom.
You were there?
Yeah. I went on a tour from Camp Red Cloud.
On, like, your day off?
Yeah. That's the ship I went to Korea on.
Oh, you mentioned that, okay. And that month on that ship's counted as part of your 13-month
Yes,
tour?
yeah.
I read that later.
Off the bus before we got on the ship.
Do you guys... Wait, hold on.
You know?
Okay, go ahead.
All right.
Got it?
Yep.
It's going under the Golden Gate Bridge. Christmas.
And what year was this?
1965. Yeah, look, Carol, me fixing radios.
Oh, nice.
These were all pictures that were in the... That's a shot up Korean grave marker.
Yeah.
Korean kids playing ice pool.
Was this common to see this?
No. They're usually out begging for food. For being in combat, you know. What they did is because in all prior wars, the only guys that could get the infantry got the combat infantry badge. So what they did is they came up with the assault badge for all other branches of the service. You know, and then the 42nd patch, because that's what we were part of, and the pin for OIF-3, Iraqi Freedom. This is from the Sussex County Veterans Association. And over here is my rank, Command Sergeant Major. This was the battalion crest, the armor, just like what I'm wearing, my collector's item, and 50th Armored Division. And then the Enlisted Association, New Jersey.
And your ring?
For this proof that I graduated Sergeant Major Academy. My name's on the inside. Class of 2002. It's got my MOS 92 Zulu, which would be senior Command Sergeant Major Supply.
Very nice.
My dinner. Yeah. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's nice. It's when you're out of the city and you're further north, you know, where I am, it's like people seem to be much more patriotic. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. Very good. I hope you enjoyed all the pictures.
My glasses. But this was
Bridge and tunnel missions.
blown up, right?
Yeah.
From the DAR.
Yeah.
Yes. Jack, do you want to do some of this?
1972.
So just repeat what you said. Coming back from night patrol.
Coming back from night patrol, Fort Drum in Korea.
No,
No, Fort Drum.
New York.
Oh, New
Yeah.
York, wow.
That's me getting my first meritorious service medal. First sergeant's Jeep. That's how we used to drive up at Fort Drum. Windshield down, canvas folded up so you didn't break the windshield, and that was it. And mud on the bumper markings and stuff.
There you go.
And this is me at Fort Drum working ground surveillance radar. I got the company commander good. We were up there. He was being a real hard nose, and he came out and he wanted to see. I was showing him how we were set up and working. And
You want to explain what this is?
this is our battalion yearbook for the the 22 months that we were mobilized.
Okay.
And it has all the companies. Every soldier's picture is in there, including the KIA in the back.
Okay.
And on the back of this was the battalion coin, challenge coin, that we made up. Battalion commander's rank, my rank, and on the outside is all the different bases where we had soldiers, where we supported the war on terrorism.
Okay. Thank you.
Jason Wyman.
He was a Teaneck fireman, and his mother used to call my wife all the time, checking on the two of us.
Is he still around?
Yes, yeah,
Oh. I never know. You use past tense.
yeah.
He was a fireman, but he's retired.
No, he's still a fireman.
Oh.
Yeah.
Good.
In Camp Doha, where you had to go to before you could go back to the States, you had to lay everything out on these big tables, and they went through everything to make sure you weren't bringing any contraband or anything illegal home. And in there they had the head from Saddam Hussein's statue.
Wow.
And then they also had a sign. It said, "Watch out, Saddam bites," because it was all jagged steel.
All right.
Before we shipped out, they had an award ceremony, and that's when we gave out the Bronze Stars. This is Saddam Hussein's Hussein's palace in Tikrit. And you can't see it in the picture, but if you go around the other side, you'll see where it was, where the jets bombed it and blew it up.
Were you there when his sons were killed?
Yes. This is the front gate
Front gate where?
at Fob Spiker.
Okay.
And these were all guys. We had to run the security because we were the largest battalion, so we had to give 90 people to the guard detail to run the constant, because there were more than one gate, and we had to run it. We got tagged with it.
I don't know if they know who Spiker was.
What? Spiker was the former Iraqi Air Force Academy, but FOB stands for Forward Operating Base. And on FOB Spiker, there was over 3,000 soldiers there. Main Support Battalion, DISCOM, this part of the Signal Battalion, part of the Division Engineers, Transportation, a truck, Army Reserve Truck Battalion from Kentucky, and a couple other units. We had a mayor's cell, and I used to have to go to the mayor's meetings, and we would complain about the electricity all the time because everything was run by generators.
Oh, this is like one of those dust storms, right?
Yes, that's a sandstorm. They would
I thought
last
they were just bad pictures, but I realize it's a dust
up
storm.
to 3 weeks. I'm not 3 weeks, 3 days. The average one lasted a day. And
What would you do? Anything different?
we couldn't drive in it, so we would hunker down.
Can you even see your hand in front of your
No.
face? How would you, oh, did you have ropes to get to the latrine?
No, you just had to find your way.
How long would they last sometimes?
Up to 3 days.
That's you?
Yeah.
Are these people you talked about?
Yeah,
They're all wearing
he was
sunglasses.
the S1. That's me. That's the battalion commander, and he was one of the TOC officers. Al Mellon, recently retired from the Guard. He was AGR. This is one of the surgeons. She always used to invite me over for a pancake day at the medical company.
Was she New Jersey?
Yes.
It's in this picture.
That's taken in my office in the battalion headquarters in Iraq.
You were good at turning the camera over to other people too,
Yes.
which is good, because
Yeah.
now we have pictures of you.
This is Mickey McGuire. He was AGR. He was one of the maintenance warrant officers. This interesting photo. You see the American flag.
Yes.
People would send us American flags and ask us to fly it.
Yes.
We were not allowed to fly the American flag in Iraq because they said we're not a conquering army.
Right.
We're only here doing occupation duty to fight the war on terrorism. So what we did is we took camouflage poles and we put them up on the roof of the battalion headquarters, and we would fly the American flag on the roof of the battalion headquarters when nobody was around. And then we would do up a certificate and send it back with whoever sent us the flag, saying that this flag was flown, blah, 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 at the roof of Bob Spiker, battalion headquarters, 50th Maine Support Battalion on such and such day. These are some of the blown up buildings on the Bob. Some of the buildings were so blown up we couldn't use them, couldn't occupy them. As it was when A Company got to their buildings, the old Iraqi pilot's building, there were so many holes in the roof, we had to go to the dump and take the packing crates, disassemble them along with pallets, and build makeshift patches for the roofs, and then take ponchos and tar paper that down so we could fix the hole. So you had to be self-reliant over there.
Yankee ingenuity.
Yeah. It's the bird of freedom coming in to take us home.
Oh, it's a great sight for you to see up in the sky.
Yeah.
What did that feel like?
Alexa said, what did that feel like?
The sight of that plane.
Oh, we were happy. Because, over there, all of these C-130s were all flown by Air National Guard. And we even had guys from McGuire flying, different times. That's inside the C-130. When you flew into most of the bases, you didn't fly in like you would a long approach. You flew in from about 5,000 feet, and then you corkscrewed down onto the runway so they couldn't fire heat-seeking missiles at you.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And the one time we were going, I think we were going to Ali Al-Salim, and they sounded the crash horn inside the plane, and the plane dived, and I had my pilot's bag between my feet with my CVC helmet on, and because we dived so fast, it became weightless, and I grabbed it when it was about here and pulled it back in. That's how fast we dove.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that was on the way home. This was in Kuwait when we had to lay out all the stuff when the MPs came through and shook everything down. That's Greenland.
I like that one.
Yeah, the stewardesses did that. Yeah. This is part of the S1 staff. That was my flag that day. I still have it.
Do you fly it at your house?
No, I fly this one when I can't. When the Never Forget
Oh.
flag.
It's very nice.
No, my American flag from Iraq is in a box in the closet with my bayonet that I took off the Iraqi sergeant major. Yeah. He didn't need it anymore.
Is that a story that we didn't write?
No, you
record?
didn't. You don't need to hear that one.
Oh, okay. Okay, Jack, thanks.